started drinking coffee in college when I started doing art, man.
And you need to stay up or something?
Yeah.
Or you'd be up early?
It'd be that, staying up early. And I used to make terrible coffee. You know, I didn't know what the hell was how to make good coffee. You know, my dad made coffee every morning to go to work, or my mom would make it, right? And I used to love the smell growing up. It'd wake me up. You know, and I think as I got older, you know, when I moved to New York, drinking the coffee in the morning, walking up to those little stands and drinking coffee, that really started to become a ritual for me. It takes time, you know. I think I like that because everything takes time, right? Mm-hmm. Doing art, you can't rush it. You gotta, you know, let it sort of marinate. You know, you draw or you paint, you take a photograph, and then you gotta wait. I kind of started liking the process of painting and doing that because it was not rushed. You could hang out, you know, draw a little bit, and then go back. You know, hang out with your friends, talk, and then, you know, pour a little bit more water. I would say I got into it because I didn't have to communicate directly.
Right. You could have your work speak for you yourself.
Yeah. I could put a painting on the wall and then walk away and then see what people's reactions were. Sometimes there'd be no reaction, and you know that was a learning lesson. I remember being a college student and thinking about, you know, at Irvine, what is it, like, what makes you an effective artist? And it was a question that, you know, a lot of teachers ask. You know, is your work effective? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? And, you know, as a young person, you're like, I don't know. Yeah. I just like drawing. You know, that's a deep question. And so I started to think about, okay, if I hang the wall and the reaction is nothing, you know, I feel like I didn't do a good job. But if if the piece evokes or stirs up some emotion in somebody, whether it's hatred, anger, or disgust, or that shit sucked, or whatever, I was like, oh, I did something.
Something, yeah.
You know, it didn't matter if it was good or bad. And I remember talking to my professors about that, and they were like, that's what you can do. And as you get older, you start to take control of those kinds of things, right? There's a video I did, the frijoles video. Have I ever told you about this video?
You baptize yourself?
I baptized myself in the videos, and I don't know if I ever told you where it comes from.
Maybe. I don't really remember, to be honest.
Okay. I was at Irvine with a friend of mine, sitting outside the gallery, thinking like, I gotta do this video. What am I gonna do? You know. And I told her the story, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna do this video on frijoles. You know, and it's like, what if I did it as like a joke, as a mockumentary, you know, of like being Chicano and being baptized in a bowl of beans makes you Chicano, you know. And a lot of it is because being light-skinned, you know, not being part of gang culture in El Sereno, you sometimes don't feel like you're Chicano enough, right? And especially with my dad, who was like, you're not Chicano, you know, you have to be American, things like that. So that was like oh, I'm gonna be baptized in a bowl of beans. I'm Chicano, you know. And everybody does it, and I presented it as though like a PBS, you know,
like a mockumentary,
like it was a serious thing. And you know, I had a friend who was into video, and so they both came in and helped me do it. We made music and made it into like this sort of ritual.
Yeah.
And we edited it. It was like 3 minutes long. I'll show it to you one day. And we showed it in class during, you know, finals. And everybody had their videos, and I put it on, and at the time, Irvine was very white, right? Very insensitive to race and culture and the arts. So a lot of them thought it was real. I started getting comments, and like, oh my God, I had no idea that you guys did this. This is so amazing. It's so interesting. I feel like I'm learning something new about your culture. And my professor, who Ulysses Jenkins, a black dude from LA, I was sitting next to him, and I was about to tell him, what are you talking about? This is completely fake. And he just grabbed me by like my arm and just pushed it down and said, shh. And I was like, okay. And I learned something there. It's like sometimes as an artist, you gotta just listen to people. Yeah. At that moment, I realized like, oh man, like there's a power as an artist in manipulating people's feelings and emotions. So anyway, I thought it was kind of cool. That was a really big teachable moment.
That is kind of it's like a little odd, but also
it's super odd, Sholo. I mean, okay, imagine if you made a video and you knew it was fake, and the people you worked with knew it was fake. But you know, they were, but everybody else wasn't in on it. It kind of makes you realize how racist people are. And this is in the 90s. So this is post Rodney King, you know, and the LAPD beating of Rodney King, and the videotape, and the acquittal of the officers, the uprising or riot, whatever, you know, position you take. And so I think it was, you know, that was part of the information, right? Like, I want to do this because I'm angry. I'm angry at how my parents thought they needed to raise me to assimilate, fit in. Because, you know, that's the way you're going to succeed in this country. You know, and here I am as an artist going like, that's not what I want to do. Yeah. So, you know, now we're 2020, just had these uprisings against police brutality again, and racism, you know, is at the forefront, and it really speaks to how from 93, 94 to now, how much have we changed, you know, around our belief systems of people's culture and race, right? We have our stereotypes. So, and art is those things that can
break those barriers,
inform us. Hip Hop Calavera pieces. It's a series of pieces I did. When was it? 2003, 2004, something like that, right? I was teaching at a charter school there as the art teacher, and I needed to develop a project for my students. And so I wanted to do something that pushed me to learn a little bit more about drawing. And I was inspired by a series of pieces that a friend of mine, Mario Ibarra, had done, sort of paying homage and looking at the what would you call them, the drawings from prison, right? The really elaborate, beautiful drawings that people do in prison. And I just was, you know, loved the detail of the work, and I wanted to do something very similar to that work, right? So I wanted to combine the things that I love, that my experiences as a DJ, as a music lover, growing up in LA, listening to a lot of hip hop, and you know, and a lot of other music, but I think hip hop for the most part was super influential. And certain albums that at the time that I did these, you know, I wanted to look at the iconic images that reflected what hip hop is to me. And so, you know, we have a 12-inch cover of
Eric Bin Rakim, DJ Eazy-E and Raw Bass. We have LL Cool J, Kanye West, the Oakland's Bay Area, the Coup, LA's The Alcoholics, NWA's second album cover, famous photograph of Dr. Dre during the LA2 uprisings outside of the police station where he's holding a gun to his head that Sean Mortensen took. So I wanted to do that one, and Ice-T. So I wanted to do that with the covers, so I wanted to get iconic album covers and redo them, but also as calaveras, right? So part of the process was actually collecting album covers that I thought were going to be really, really cool, and if I had them, that would be awesome because then I have the originals. The only one that I did not have was the Coos album Party People because it was banned, and it showed the Twin Towers being blown up, and this was at the time they did this album. At the time of release was September 11th 2001, right? The day that the Twin Towers blew up. They released that album, I think it was a week before, and so the record labels and record stores, you know, got into a mad scramble the days after the Twin Towers bombing, and removed it from the shelves, right? So, and then they changed the album cover to something else, and you know, the album cover that the second one was, it was nice, but it wasn't necessarily what I wanted to portray with this piece, because if I'm gonna do one of their pieces, I was gonna do, you know, the one that got away, right? So it turned into something else. And so that one, and then there's Ice-T. You know, let's see, where's Ice-T? It's the Ice Cube, of course. We have Eric B. and Rakim. These are like bands that I remember watching on video, you know, late night or whenever I could. Songs that really inspired me to love hip hop and love music, you know. So it was important for me to do that and make that connection to Jose Guadalupe Posada. And so Jose Guadalupe Posada is one of the, you know, top influences for Chicano art, especially in my generation, because of his stylized calaveras. And so a lot of the Day of the Dead work that is done, you know, is around replicating his artwork, you know. So that was one of the things that was really important to me, was to look at, you know, things that were very Chicano from my childhood, from growing up, going to Mexico, and being able to go to museums and seeing the artwork for the first time, and being really, you know, inspired by that stuff. So I wanted to combine the two things that I love, Chicano culture and black culture, right? Those are the two things that really have a huge influence on the work that I do, then and still to this day. What I wanted to do is look at it and then take it and teach to my students how one can look at an image, trace it, stylize it so it doesn't have to look like a photograph, and then work on the sketch until you're happy with the shapes and the lines and the contours. Not necessarily the shading, because the shading would come later. And so a lot of it was working with the composition, the layout. If there's going to be a background, don't draw the background of the original work, but just draw what you want to keep. So extract the things that you want to keep and throw away the things that you don't want anymore in the drawing, so that it becomes yours. So it just doesn't become a copy of it, right? But you make it your own. And then from there, from those drawings, I would take my light table and actually then start to outline and trace the line that I wanted for the shapes. And once I did that, I actually was able to then take my pencils, and I had a series of pencils from 6H all the way to 8B pencils, and I began to lightly start shading it, trying to definitely get the textures of the pants, the shoes, making sure that they were Nikes, they were like Wallabies, or the beer looked like real beer from the bottles, to really connect it back to Chicano roots and art. So I wanted to make sure that the cap looked like it was a wool cap, not just any cap, right? The jean jacket that the homie's wearing looks like a jean jacket. The reflection off the beer bottle looked like it would on a beer bottle, and then the little bubbles on top of the beer, that would look like it as well. And then so that was my idea, to draw these and connect them to calaveras, the two things that I like: Chicano art, Chicano culture, Mexican culture, and black culture, right here, sort of mixing in as the experience of being someone from Los Angeles, from the east side, super influenced by my surroundings. And I think that that's what art is about. And I never sold these because I wanted to keep them. I made copies of them, and people really wanted to buy them and keep them, and so I was able to sell a lot of copies of these, but I kept the originals.
What do you think it is that draws people to these pictures?
When I show them, when we go into prison, I always show our portfolio, right? One of the first things that Fabian and I do is we bring our portfolios to make that connection with everybody around our work, right? So I wanted to make sure that they understood who I am. And so when I show them these pieces and the Zapatista pieces that I did in 96, 97, there's a lot of like, whoa, all right, you can paint and you can draw. And so they begin to look at it, and then they, some of them recognize these pieces and trip out on the fact that they're calaveras, right? And then you start to show the details of like, the flannel shirt, the jean jacket, the dulces in the background, the sugar skulls, the details of the Louis Vuitton jumpsuit, velour jumpsuit, the chains. They don't look like regular gold chains. They're stylized, but that's like the point, is to hopefully inspire, folks that are learning how to draw, that it's not just replicating or trying to make it look like the photograph, but really like take the photograph, be inspired by what that photograph feels for them, and then be able to create an art piece that actually speaks to that emotional connection that you have to those pieces. To me, this music is really inspiring. I really like it. Not just the lyrics or the music that's created from it, but it's like a time traveling thing for me, because I really like discovering the samples that they made, flip them, and then going back and then finding them in jazz music, soul music, Mexican music, Puerto Rican music, Cuban music, rock music, and then making that connection that these artists with limited tools, right? Just records and some equipment, transform the equipment to become tech fucking giants, and really begin to transform the sound of music and the feel of music, right? And even the photographs, to me, now that I look at them, they really take me back to when I was a kid, and seeing family, neighbors, friends, really sort of absorbed by hip-hop culture in the 80s and 90s here in LA, and that's what I think gravitates people to, because it's like you see these and you realize, oh, I remember raw bass, It Takes Two, I remember the Alcoholics, I remember NWA, that's da da da, and they start to break it down, and so it's like it brings back memories, right? And fills us up. And a lot of it is just, that's all we have, right? Is our memories. And we play them back and to keep us alive, to keep the memory of other people alive that we don't have connections to anymore, or even a period of time in music that we just, you know, moved past. But those are, you know, the artwork, the photographs, the vinyl records or the cassettes and CDs, you know, the mixtapes that people make. You know, you can go back, plop it into your cassette player, and then all of a sudden it's there. You're back in that time, right? You shrink that time and you become that person again, you know, and you start, your memories flood back in. I love that. I love that about art, and I think, to me, that's what these pieces do. Plus, it gives it a sense of, like, black-brown unity, you know, of, like, where, you know, there is that love, there is that connection here in LA, you know, that is a lot deeper than the situations that we got ourselves into in the 80s and 90s with the relationships between black and brown in our communities. You know, that connection is deep. We have a deep love and admiration for each other, and that's something that I think these pieces, I wanted to express, that is that connection, that as a Chicano, I have a strong connection to black communities.
Conservatory is a nonprofit that very specifically focuses on introducing careers in film, television, broadcasting, and digital media to young brown and black youth in Los Angeles County. Our goal and our intention is to provide a more equitable landscape in the entertainment and creative arts field by introducing young people to these careers at a moment in time when it could have a significant impact on their trajectory. Much of the work we do, and especially the work we do with Omar Ramirez, is working with our incarcerated youth and formerly incarcerated youth population. We are in every camp and hall in LA County, and then we also have a reentry program that focuses very specifically on radio, creating radio shows, producing, hosting, and being able to engineer and edit your own radio content. An excellent example of the work that Omar G. Ramirez brought to our youth and to our reentry participants is with the mural project that he initiated and walked our participants through at the hallways of BHAC. This included teaching our participants the commercial application of wheat pasting by having them use really high-end art pieces and being able to collage them into one longer and more coherent art piece. That is a skill that you really can't learn anywhere, and Omar was able to present that program at a very simple and accessible language to walk our participants through it, and that's something that we really appreciate because you're able to look at the finished product and just seeing the look on their faces when all these young men and women looked up and realized that the past month's work had now come together into this beautiful piece that looked like it had been done by really professional artists, but it was their first step into the art world, which is exactly what we're hoping to accomplish, for them to be able to see the possibilities, for them to be able to imagine the possibilities of being an artist, and Omar makes that very seamless.
Alright, so I'm Edgar Jimene. I'm involved in Por Vida Media Youth Collective. I got involved about like half a year ago, I think, when it like restarted or like got reamped here. And I really started working because it's a great way to like connect with other people that are creative like I am, and also like to work on like social justice and things as such. But also like it's just helping the community that like really involves me, like giving people stories and like our stories, like people of color stories, which is why it's important, I think. So I've been doing a lot of things, all the way from like planting and gardening to like doing like interviews from like what's going on right now with the Black Lives Matter like continuous movement. And what else have I done? We're working on an altar right now for Black Lives Matter, which is great, you know, because we're creating solidarity between like the Latinx community and also the Black community. And the gardening, we work in different gardenings in different parts of Los Angeles County. We've worked in some in Silmar. We've worked here on the corner on Mott and Cesar Chavez. We're also planning to work on my home in the garden there. So we're just open to helping anyone that wants to like regenerate and like decolonize like our country, like our spaces and our homes.
Well, hi, my name is Michelle Payan, and I'm from East LA. I'm 20 years old, and I've been a part of the Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory for almost 2 years now. I got involved with the radio station fresh out of high school, and I was really interested in sound, but along the way I got to meet some friends and some people in the community who were really interested in restoring native plants in the city and in urban areas and in East LA and in Northeast LA. And through the folks through the Regenerative Collective, I was able to learn about the importance of growing native plants and why native plants are so badass. Because this garden here is just one small example of how much we can transform the small spaces, green spaces that we have in the city. Before, this was all weeds, completely overgrown, and some weeds are still growing out still, but it was just kind of a waste of space, and it didn't provide anything to the community. And now more than ever, we need resources, we need our own medicine, we need our places to gather. So with this garden, our intention was to not only bring medicine and plants and help keep this community clean, but also to have a place for people to gather and connect with the land and with themselves and with other people who they live with. We got support from other youth in this space planning all this stuff, and it was just a really beautiful experience for all of us to come out here to clear all these weeds, and within a day just see this whole landscape transform. And now it's been several weeks and all these plants have really taken off, and hopefully we'll be able to gather some sagebrush. This is a really powerful medicine right here. We're growing some more sage, some sunflowers, and we have an edible garden down that way for kale. And this is just all one example of how powerful native plants and planting in urban communities can really transform not only the landscape, but I think the mental state that we experience living in a city. We're always on the move, always on the run, not really paying attention to our surroundings because it's all buildings. There's nothing really beautiful to look at here. But really, we're taking this time to be grateful for the little bit of land that we do have in the city, and appreciate how much it can give back to us. And that's why we planted all these plants here, because this is not only to help heal this soil and help keep this community clean, but it's so that it can give back to all the people who live here, and they can walk by here every day and hopefully be inspired by what they see, be inspired to start their own garden wherever they can. And I'm losing my train of thought.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you consider yourself an artist?
I've definitely struggled with calling myself an artist almost my whole life because I do think that I have channeled my creativity through so many different mediums, so I've never really been dedicated to one form of art, but I definitely do consider myself an artist, an interdisciplinary artist, because I find ways to create in plants, in music, in visual art, in tagging. There's so many ways that art can be created, and this is definitely one of them. I definitely see this as art. And I would call myself an artist, yeah.